Cool. So this meeting is about scaling and scaling GitLab. Well, I think first of all, the name of the page, and maybe Diana can help me here. Didn't we think of a new name in that original issue that we created?
I don't really remember talking about a new name for the page.
Okay. Can someone link the issue that we created to fix this, because I don't see it on our agenda?
Yes.
Because like this page is like how to do more, and we need to make sure that this is about, I don't know, I don't want to call it maturity levels because I think that's the wrong term, but kind of an architecture sounds too vague. I think we talked about a better name. We now have these reference architectures, but I don't know. So recommended setups based on number of users. It's kind of overlapping. So this says, okay, do one of the reference architectures without HA. And this says, do it based on the reference architectures with or without. Okay.
So that middle one got added by me yesterday.
Yeah, cool. I think it's a good next step. Like people don't necessarily need HA, and I think we need to be clear in that. There's some things that I think this probably needs a comma here after the 10 to make it easier. And then probably we need to number this list, and we probably need to say 1,000 to 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
We don't recommend HA, so we should make that a separate thing. And then the reference architectures can be with or without HA. So there's, I think, a better way to structure this list. Also, a bit of a pet peeve, but let's make sure that the recommendations don't overlap. So it's 1 to 999 and then 1,000 to something else. Of course, this is not an exact science, but if we're going to pretend it is, let's try to make it that.
On the topic of restructuring this, my idea was to try and maybe split the two concerns, scaling and availability, because you can scale without necessarily investing in availability. And so we could have two sort of sections and then have like a table for each. I kind of detailed in that one epic linked here, but you could have a simple table of what we recommend for the different user counts and then the costs associated, for example. Like estimated off of AWS or GCP. And then similarly for availability, we can go through and talk about, okay, great. So you want to achieve certain availability for certain kinds of events. And we can go through and talk about what the recovery point objective is, what the recovery time objective is, and then also the associated costs as well. Because again, running Geo isn't free. And so it's, if you think you need that for your business continuity, then great, we have that available for you. But A, maybe don't start there, and B, be cognizant of the fact that it'll increase your costs as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to split this page up in scaling and availability.
Yeah, and just, I mean, in my previous position, I was running an instance with 22,000 users, and we had no HA at all. We were just doing the simple scaling, and it worked very well for us. With
Yeah.
a master slave on the database and a reliable file system for being able to take volume snapshots. And we had great reliability, but we didn't have all the complexity of the HA.
Yeah, because sometimes the HA causes more problems than it's solving, and that should be super, super clear. Then there's this, so let's split the page up in that. So get rid of the maturity levels, just have scaling and availability, and the availability part should stress kind of the trade-offs that you make in cost and complexity and maintenance and everything else. And in availability, potentially, if you make a mistake. Then there's GitLab components and configuration instructions. Like, what's that doing here? We have a components page.
Yeah, I think so. I think Larissa found that one. I'm not sure if Larissa wants to talk about where that came from. I think you found the MR, which changed it.
Yeah, we used to have step-by-step instructions on the ordering in which you should set up HA. So start with this component, then do this next component. That got removed recently, but there's an MR to put that back up. So I don't know if it belongs on this page, but I think we do need instructions for the order in which you go about setting up HA.
Yeah, so considering the domain name, the URL for this page, let's make this page about high availability and how to set it up. So leave this, if this is this is going to be a step-by-step, that makes sense. Let's create a scaling page. And let's create an availability page. So the scaling page is like the different sizes. And then by the way, the scaling page, would that have these ones? So should we call that the reference architecture page instead?
Yeah, I think we want to call it, I think we can call it the scaling page and have the scaling pages will use the reference architectures as, well, references for various sizes and architectures you can use. I do think we need smaller reference architectures, like kind of what Dana was mentioning. We're missing that like 2 node configuration where you just got 2 of them to handle increased load without going to fully split out, 20 box architecture. So we definitely are missing an interim step here for sure. To go from 1 node to 20 is unnecessary.
Yeah, I think let's maybe call it the reference architecture page instead of the scaling page. Because if that's what it is, then reference architecture is going to be much less ambiguous.
Yeah, I'm not sure to think of like what a user would try and find or search for. Like, what are they trying to solve? Like, how do I scale GitLab, or how do I, what am I trying to achieve? And that's what I was kind of coming at from the scaling side of things. But yeah.
Yeah,
whereas they might not know we have reference architectures, or what we call them. They're like Googling for things or looking for the documentation for headers. But that's just my thought around the naming.
Okay, so you say scaling page with reference architectures. Great. So let's do that. And then let's see. In our reference architecture description, we give GCP node sizes. We should include the equivalent AWS things. Oh, great. That has an issue attached to it. Hey, this takes half an hour to do. Why is this stuck for three weeks?
Yeah.
Can we hand it to an engineer or something?
Yeah, for sure. So I think we can definitely try and do this. I would like to spend a couple hours on this page and just go through it personally and just knock all these things out and try to improve these things.
Not trying to create more work for you. Lean, can you add the GCP or the AWS equivalent instance sizes to this page? And send an MR to Josh. Is that okay, Josh, to have a first stab at that?
That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Great. We need to be clear that Gitaly only replaces NFS for repository data. I hope we're solving that sooner rather than later.
Pages, I think, is slated for object storage support here in June, July timeframe. I think, Larissa, you might have a more up-to-date idea, but that's what I last remember seeing.
Yeah. Gitaly HA.
Pages relying upon
Oh,
shared
okay,
storage to
yeah.
function.
Yeah, Pages is, they're aiming for mid-year.
Yeah, but Pages is a pretty niche thing for GitLab. Can we make sure that we say, hey, you only need NFS if you use Pages and you set up Pages?
Yeah, you certainly can.
Okay, it already says so. Can be used as an alternative for Gitly or object storage, required for GitLab Pages. I would say optional. Required if you want to use GitLab Pages, can be used as an alternative. We got to make super clear that people don't use it if we can prevent it.
Yeah, the only other detail which I've learned trying to derive direct upload for object storage as the only option is that we only support S3 compatible and GCP object storage with direct upload. And if you want to use something like OpenStack or other DigitalOcean providers, you have to have NFS because it requires the background uploader. So just some context for you on sort of some other gaps.
I thought DigitalOcean pretended to be, or said that it was S3 compatible, but maybe for the download, not the upload.
I can double check, but there's a very few number of providers that we have direct upload support for.
Okay.
It has to do with like multi-part uploads, I believe.
That makes sense. Cool, thanks for that. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, so I think that those are the highlights. Let's make sure the current page is just for the HA instructions and make them read like instructions, or like make sure they're instructions and not just a list. Make sure we have a scaling page with the reference architects. Make sure we have an ability page that includes the trade-offs, and then we'll add the GCP equivalent. And that NFS, make it super clear that it's not required if you can do the multi-part uploads. And I'd link to, like, it's the thing you just said, hey, multi-part upload or uploads are only supported for a limited number of platforms and things like that. That should be, feel free to put that on the page. By the way, it's kind of weird that we're saying that here, but it's half of an installation page or whatever. Cool. Well, those are all the suggestions I had.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think on the solution page, we've done a lot to sort of move things over here, which is great. And then you can maybe keep that more marketing focused.
Yep.
To just be like exception handling, to basically be like, yes, we check those boxes for both availability and scaling. We can meet your needs. Go here if you need more information. So
that makes sense. And the Gitly page says things like eliminating NFS altogether, which is like which is no longer on this page. So we link to the Gitly page in a weird way. Well, small thing. Diana, any input?
That eliminating NFS altogether was the thing that I had originally written to show, here's how you get rid of it. And then it got moved to this other page. So that's why we need to clean up that link.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we're slowly approaching something that's more useful.
Yep, and let's not forget about the overarching goal. It's not just the overarching goal is to make sure we see too many people having an HA architecture, even if their usage doesn't warrant it, and that's the thing we want to prevent. If we have all these small installations with HA, it's probably going to cause more downtime than it solves, and it creates an enormous support burden on us. And we get a ton of questions and a lot of SA and TAM time trying to fix these things. So that's why we're improving this page.
Thanks, Sid. The one other thing just to note here as it relates to high availability is that we previously stated we could do 0 downtime upgrades on single nodes. Wasn't always the case, but the way Unicorn handled updates it was fairly graceful. And so as long as you weren't upgrading some dependencies, it'd be fine. With Puma, it doesn't handle those upgrades as gracefully, and so you'll get momentary downtime as Puma restarts. So just something to keep in mind, that we're taking a little bit of a hit on the, you might see like 2 minutes of downtime on an upgrade with Puma, whereas you wouldn't potentially see any with Unicorn.
Okay.
So some context there that would unfortunately downside of going Puma, but I think it's still worth the benefits of ultimately going that direction. They have because of the performance and memory improvements.
Yep, that makes sense. I do think like there's an aspect to like how much downtime is. Zero downtime is pretty clear, 0 seconds, but I do think 2 minutes are not too bad compared to some alternative products to GitLab that have hours of downtime. But thanks for that context. Yep. And since the goal is to prevent load on our support teams, it's okay to be a bit prescriptive. We can, like, people know they have options and they can add HA. We should put the advice out here that is, if you do this, you do that, because otherwise it's gonna lead to a load on our support. And we've experienced that people will do whatever they want, which is fine. That's why it's open source, and we should encourage that. But it's okay to be a bit more prescriptive and just have our best guess on this page, tell people what to do. We have more context than anyone, and we should tell them what to do, because it doesn't make sense to say, well, you can do this or this. Well, we're GitLab. We should tell them what to do. Because otherwise we have 10 people that are figuring that out all on themselves, and it's much better to have it on one page, have our best knowledge in a single source of truth. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sid.